Alright, welcome in. I'm the Kodiak, and today we have a bit of a new angle. So, yeah, let's get right into it. Leave a like if you enjoy, or you can always wait until the end. Hopefully, I'll have earned it. Subscribe if you're not already, and let's get right into it. So, Monti Ossenfort, you have your work cut out for you this year because coming into this year, Arizona looked completely hopeless. Like, not Carolina hopeless, but they were the odds-on favorite coming into this year to finish with the worst record in the NFL, and it was not particularly close. This was due to a number of reasons. First of all, they lost a lot of, savvy veteran talent last year. They shipped off a lot of guys who had been part of their core for the past few years. And yeah, Arizona had kind of become the retirement home of the NFL, and you had guys like, I don't know, J.J. Watt and A.J. Green going there. So I think Ossenfort is completely trying to revamp that and going with young leadership, young talent, and stuff like this is not fixed overnight. So they went from having Cliff Kingsbury and Vance Joseph to Jonathan Gannon, and I can't remember off the top of my head who their defensive coordinator was, but that is a massive upgrade for their coaching staff regardless, because Cliff Kingsbury, even though he designed an offense for Kyler, even though the air raid worked very well for Kyler, who actually ended up playing some of the best football of his career after he got back from his ACL tear. I don't know. That was just really interesting. But I do respect what Kingsbury was able to do and what he was able to tailor his offense to in making Kyler the thing of his offense. Like, Kyler was the what that offense was built around. There was pretty much no other redeeming qualities. They've always had a bad run game, no running back usage. They also had a propensity to deploy receivers that were undersized, and I don't know, that was just another weird staple of that offense. But regardless, coming into this year, a lot of people are skeptical on Kyler Murray, and I was, but I'm no longer that way, and here's why. So, Kyler Murray tore his ACL in December, mid-December of 2022. I did not think that he was going to come back strong enough or good enough to continue playing football for the Arizona Cardinals, even though he signed that extension in the 2022 offseason. I felt like it was sort of that video game clause says everything. It was not really a willing extension by the front office or by Steve Keim, and the regime that gave Kyler that extension was fired. So it didn't matter how Gannon felt about Kyler. It didn't matter how Ossenfort felt about Kyler. It mattered how they felt about whoever was going to be available in this draft. And Kyler Murray played some of the best football of his career after he came back from his ACL tear. So I just want to reiterate that. He has proven me wrong because I thought that they were going to finish with the first overall pick. And even today, if you're deciding between Kyler Murray at $40 million a year or Caleb Williams at $9 million against the salary cap, in my opinion, it's not really a hard decision. It's kind of what Chicago went through, but Fields is nowhere close to the level of Kyler Murray. But regardless, I'm a believer in Kyler, and now they have a chance to get a wide receiver for him at the 4th overall pick. At the end of this year, you had an emergence from guys like Trey McBride. I know Michael Wilson had some pretty good flashes as well. And they're going to get James Conner back, who, I mean, he's definitely got some tread on his tires, but it'll help having a savvy veteran presence in that running back room to mentor guys like Amari DeMarcado and whoever else they decide to add. But this team is going to go very heavily on the offensive side of the ball in this upcoming draft. They drafted Paris Johnson last year, and it begs the question. So they don't need a quarterback. They have a propensity and they have the ability to trade back with whoever. They can trade back with Arizona. They can trade back, not Arizona. They can trade back with Minnesota. They can trade back with Denver. They can trade back with the Raiders. They can trade back with a lot of quarterback needy teams who, in this draft, there are going to be 4 quarterbacks likely drafted in the pretty much a lock to get drafted in the top 10 at minimum. And I'm talking about worst case scenario. Daniels, May, and Williams, not necessarily in that order, are not making it out of the top 5, 100%. J.J. McCarthy is not making it out of the top 10 anymore. There's way too much smoking about way too many NFL teams liking him, even though I think it's kind of, unwarranted hype. You have to respect that there is a lot of smoke around him, therefore he is likely going to be drafted top 10. And if you are a team like Minnesota, you cannot wait until 11 for him to be there. If you're a team like Denver who believes in J.J. McCarthy, you cannot wait until 12 for him to be there, especially because the Vikings are picking 1 pick ahead of you. And the Vikings made a trade for the Houston Texans' first overall pick this year, and that's just more ammo to move up. The reason they did it so early on was because they want to move up for a quarterback. And the only thing is who's willing to listen, because I don't think Chicago or Washington or New England are going to be, if they are dead set on taking quarterbacks, I don't think they're answering the phone when it comes to trading back. I could see New England because that roster has tons of holes, but I think for Washington and for Adam Peters, it makes sense to get your franchise guy in Drake May. But Arizona, you do not need to take a quarterback. You can just sit there. You can take Marvin Harrison Jr. If the Patriots go with Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3rd overall, you can take Malik Neighbors because they're kind of interchangeable. A lot of people have him as wide receiver 1A, 1B, and I've seen a lot of people with Odunze up there as well. So it doesn't really matter about what the Cardinals do player-wise because they're in a no-lose situation when it comes to players. Like their nightmare scenario is the Bears and the Bears and Commanders and Patriots at 1, 2, 3, taking Neighbors, MHJ, and Odunze, and that is 1,000% not going to happen. If that happens and you bet on it, you better buy a lottery ticket next because that is the wackiest thing I could ever imagine happening in the NFL draft. But for the Arizona Cardinals, you are in a very good position because you do not need to do anything, and the fact that the teams in front of you are basically going to decide your pick for you, and you're fine with that because there's not that big of a difference between MHJ, Neighbors, or Odunze, and that's what they're going to go for. They're going to go with a wide receiver to pair with Kyler for the rest of his career. They're getting some help alongside Wilson and McBride and all of them because they just lost Hollywood Brown in free agency. But when I think about Arizona, this team has a lot of flexibility, and it might be worth. I saw this trade proposal today that I would crush my soul as a Broncos fan, but I saw the Broncos giving up their 12th overall this year, their 25 first and 26 first for J.J. McCarthy. And if you're Arizona and you see a dysfunctional team like Denver offering that to you, I don't know how you can say no. So ultimately, what I think is going to happen with Arizona, I think they're going to stay put. But if the right offer comes, they should trade back. And mainly because if you get a team like the Broncos, the Raiders, or even the Vikings, who are probably going to be better than both of those teams, at least over the next 3 years, because their teams are constructed better. They have, at least somewhat responsible GMs. KAM is much better than George Payton, and Telesco is I'm not encouraged with what I saw in LA when he was with the Chargers for the past decade, but I think the Cardinals should not trade back. I think they should stay put, mainly because you're not going to get the haul that you are going to want at 4th overall. The reason I believe that is because they kind of already have played their hand. They've kind of already played their hand, and all right, well, they're pretty much mocked a receiver on literally every mock draft you look at. They are pretty much chalk in taking a receiver. You can almost put that in Sharpie. So, and if you were to trade back, you would just basically lose all the leverage from the 25 and 26 first. And there's nothing wrong with that. But how are you going to beat the 49ers? How are you going to beat the Rams? How are you going to beat the Seahawks who now have Mike McDonald? And you're not going to do it by just trading back and taking Brian Thomas Jr. and hoping that someone else can suck over the next 2 years and that your first is going to be early from them so that you have basically 4 firsts over the 25 and 26 drafts. And while that would be my dream, while I am, me as a value hog, I would love that. I don't think the Cardinals can do that. I would love it. I think it'd be a great experiment to see what could actually be done with something like that. But yeah. So that basically does it for me, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.